Howard Beck, Bleacher Report senior NBA writer, joins us, and I share in your pain and your misery and your anger and your frustration, Howard, because every year at this time I say the same thing. The media should not be voting on the all-NBA teams. So why is the media voting on the all-NBA teams?
Good morning, Dan. It's complicated, or at least my own feelings on it are complicated. So let me make it clear on this level. I don't mind us being involved as voters, although that has other implications too, even if there were no money attached. The league needs a voting body that is as impartial as possible. People can scoff if they want, as whether or not we're impartial and make good judgments, blah, blah, blah. We are a better voting body than the players or the coaches. And if people want to debate that, they can, but I don't think there's much discussion there. And the league has the media do it over those other options for a reason. What the problem for me really is this, that in the last CBA negotiated a few years back, they created the Supermax. And to decide how to qualify for the Supermax, the league lawyers and the union lawyers decided to attach it to things like All-NBA and MVP and Defensive Player of the Year, and that if you achieved certain of these marks within a certain span, you'd be eligible for a bigger contract, so that teams had a better tool to try to keep, say, Kevin Durant from leaving Oklahoma, which is what spurred that discussion at the bargaining table in the first place. Well, so what happened as a result? They ended up tying tens of millions of dollars to awards that are decided by us in the media, putting us in just an awful position. We should not, I'll be as clear as possible, we absolutely, positively should not be, as media folks covering the league, put in a position to determine what any of these guys make. And if it's just, the awards themselves, people can say, well, even before they put this in the CBA, you could say that guys winning certain honors probably helped them at the bargaining table. Okay, that's fine if it's just a negotiating point. But you know who the great players are and what they earn or what they should or are valued at anyway. But specifically tying either bonuses or a different kind of contract, a bigger contract, to awards voted on by us puts us in a terrible spot. I wish they'd never done it. I've told them that. Not that my opinion matters to the NBA and union lawyers.
Well, I've been yelling, too, from the mountaintops about another thing, is that we got to stop with it. You have to have a center, 2 forwards, and 2 guards. I want to have the 15 best players. I don't need to have Rudy Gobert make third team All-NBA. He's not one of the top 15 players. And plus, Kevin Durant at some time could be listed as, a center, or Draymond Green could, or Steph could be a 2. What's James Harden? We got to stop with these designations because they're positionless now in the NBA.
Amen. And Bob Ryan made a great point on Twitter the other day. There's a funny sentence. Bob Ryan made a great point on Twitter. I love that Bob Ryan is on Twitter. I love it. But Bob got on Twitter speaking from the NBA mountaintops, and he has seen all of it in the entire evolution of the game, saying, listen, folks, Steph Curry is not a point guard, and it's not an insult. He's just a great scorer and shooter and a guard who happens to also be really good with the ball in his hands. And on that team, frankly, Draymond Green plays a lot of point forward. He handles a lot of the playmaking. And at times Kevin Durant, when he's healthy, handles a lot of playmaking. And so our old designations of point guard, shooting guard, small forward, power forward, and especially in this era, they just don't feel that relevant. And I'm with you, and Rachel Nichols has made the point loudly on the jump as well, that especially for All-NBA, having the top 15 players in the league is more important than carving out designations for old labels that don't feel as relevant today. And I'm with you. Having to stick 3 centers on there, even though the center position has become revolutionized. This is not the days where Jamal McGlure makes the All-Star team because you just needed a center. But the NBA has already eliminated the center from the All-Star ballot. Did it years ago. Yeah. Why it's still on the All-NBA ballot is beyond me.
Got any problem with LeBron third team?
No, I voted him third team myself, so I clearly am not going to contradict myself today. Here's the thing. His numbers start there because the numbers are always the most important thing, right? Like defense matters. A lot of things matter. A guy's stats are where we start these discussions. Let's not say otherwise. LeBron's stats across the board, like 28, 8, and 7, or 28, 7, 7, wherever it was, very close to where they were a season ago. His efficiency down a little bit, but still better than 99% of the NBA. And yes, he missed a bunch of games, and yes, the Lakers missed the playoffs. He's still LeBron freaking James. I can't leave him off the All-NBA ballot. If he'd only played 40 games, if he'd fallen below a certain threshold,
yeah.
I think he played 55. That's getting really close to where I'm uncomfortable, and I wasn't that comfortable. But he's LeBron James. Years from now, we would think it's ludicrous that he wasn't All-NBA.
I also, you start to look at this situation with LeBron, and he's out recruiting. It's like he's a college coach out there recruiting to try to get players. I want to know what the recruiting pitch is by LeBron James to get these players to think about the Lakers.
Yeah, that's a fascinating one. I would love to see his PowerPoint presentation. I imagine it has something to do with, sun and palm trees and a whole lot of banners and come play with me because, I recently went to 8 straight finals and I'm still putting up pretty good numbers, as Howard Beck just pointed out. Listen, obviously he's going to have to, gloss over all of the weirdness and dysfunction that's going on with that franchise this season in particular, or the last couple months. But the formula is basically the same. If you play with LeBron James, we saw for an 8-year stretch, if you were his teammate, you were enjoying a very nice long playoff run and making bonuses and getting a chance at a championship. And listen, to me, that still should be the most persuasive argument, irrespective of Magic Johnson and Rob Pelinka and coaching changes and all that other stuff.
Best player in the game, it feels like, is almost week to week. That, 2 weeks ago, it was the Greek Freak. Steph Curry had a run as well in the Portland series. Kevin Durant had a little bit of a run. Now it's Kawhi Leonard's turn. Who's the best player in the game?
But back to the LeBron discussion, I think everybody has just decided that we have to crown somebody new because LeBron's not playing, and that's fine. Like, if we want to make this a discussion, well, listen, as long as he's on the shelf and he's not in this postseason for the first time in 14 years, and I have a story about that up on Bleacher Report right now, as long as he's not on the board, let's pick somebody else. But I would say let's pick him with the understanding that as soon as next season starts, LeBron's right back there. Like, there's nothing he did this season other than missing the playoffs, which has a lot more to do with the Lakers roster than with him. So I still think by default, or at least by the one who's earned it over the long haul and still has it, would be him if he's healthy. But if he's off to the side for the moment, I would have gone with Kevin Durant, but now he's hurt. So are we talking about the best player who's still actually playing? Because we don't know when Durant's coming back.
But also look at Golden State. This isn't a small sample size, Howard, where without him, what are they, like 31-4? I know that I don't think they're better without him. I think they're different without him. I think they play differently without him. He's the great luxury item, which should be his nickname. But I think Steph Curry is more valuable to that team than Kevin Durant will ever be.
It's complicated, right? Because they won a championship before Durant got there. They lost a championship before Durant got there. He's been the Finals MVP the last 2 years and absolutely was the right choice both years and earned it. And I'm not sure that they win those 2 championships without him. And,
okay.
Look, his skill set and his uniqueness, it was so – they went out and got it for a reason. And the reason was when they lost to the Cavs in the finals. And there are all kinds of caveats we can place on that series. But the bottom line was they didn't have anybody who could just manufacture out of thin air the way that LeBron and Kyrie could for the Cavaliers. And getting Kevin Durant meant they had somebody that when all else fails, when their beautiful offense breaks down, when all the ball and player movement breaks down, if someone just got to pull something out of their you-know-where, Kevin Durant can do that in a way that nobody they had could. And so I think he has been essential to them. A luxury item, yes, especially in the regular season. Maybe even a luxury item in the first couple rounds of the playoffs. But I think in the finals in particular, that's when Durant has mattered most to them. But I do agree that the heart of their identity and the guy who makes them tick the most is still Steph Curry. And I think during the regular season, you saw that when Curry was out, that they didn't win at as high a percentage with a team that was Durant generated, because Steph is that important to their style of play and the way that the ball moves.
Klay Thompson, underrated or overrated?
If he doesn't make the All-NBA teams, and he didn't, now I feel like kind of underrated. And people are trying to, pick away at all the different things of this season. Well, he shot poorly the first couple months, or, his defense wasn't locked in. My gosh. All right, so, the caveat here again. I put Klay Thompson on my All-NBA third team. So my response here is obvious. I believe he was worthy of All-NBA this year. And so, therefore, I feel like if he didn't make it, which he didn't, that he's become a little underrated. I think he's more underappreciated. I think people understand his talent or his value and his incredible shooting and his defense and his versatility on the defensive end. I think they maybe rate him properly but don't value him properly, if I can make that distinction.
Yeah.
That they're not showing enough appreciation for what he does and within a role. And he could do a lot more somewhere else if he wanted to. I don't suspect that he will, but I think he could be an even bigger time scorer on another team.
Which leads me to the Houston Rockets situation, where the report is on The Athletic that apparently Chris Paul and James Harden had words during the game, Game 6, and after the game, Game 6, and then they went their separate ways. I understand frustration in a closeout game with Golden State eliminating them, but if Chris Paul, who is always complaining, is saying to the coach and, ball movement, and you signed up for this, you had a year left on your deal when you went to Houston. You signed up for it. You can't all of a sudden in Game 6 go, I think we need to change our offensive style here. Feels like it's a little late in the game. And then these two are stuck with each other. Chris Paul got that unbelievable deal that they overpaid for him. So he's there, for thick or thin, good or bad. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said, Dan. He forced his way there. That's where he wanted to be. He wanted to play with James Harden. He and to that, even on style of play, let's talk about that for a second, because I wrote about this a year ago. Mike D'Antoni was always all about ball and player movement, and the ball finds energy and all this. That was his mantra in Phoenix when they were at their best, and everywhere since. And Mike D'Antoni adapted out of necessity and because he wanted to win, because he had two incredible isolation guards who love to dominate the ball, in Harden and Chris Paul. So they changed Mike's offense essentially, or forced Mike to adapt. And what they've done since then, all good and bad, is about what Chris Paul wants to do, the way he wants to play, and the way James Harden wants to play. So they are completely responsible as a all-star duo for that style. And if Chris Paul's all of a sudden, you're irked that James Harden is dominating the ball too much, I don't know what to tell him. Not only did you buy into this, but you're part of that style. You are part of why the Rockets moved this direction instead of Mike D'Antoni's old offense. So, a little hypocritical, but I also understand it. And listen, the more that they have failed, and failure is a strong term for a team that's made some pretty nice playoff runs and was within a couple minutes of the finals a year ago. But to the extent that they have fallen short of the finals, and if there are flaws, people I think are focusing more and more now on Harden's amazing, and this gets them to a certain point, but does there need to be a little bit more balance on that Rockets team to get where they want to go? And that's been the lesson for NBA teams for, eons. That was even what Phil Jackson had to convince Michael Jordan of way back in the day, that, guys have to be involved, that there has to be more than a one-man show.
Howard, great stuff. Have a great weekend. Thanks for joining us.
Always appreciate it, Dan. Thank you. Wishing you the best.
That's Howard Beck, Bleacher Report senior NBA writer. If you missed any of the interviews from the Mercedes, the AMG Man Cave, go to the Dan Patrick Show app. You can watch or listen from inside the Mercedes-AMG Man Cave. Mercedes-AMG driving performance.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune into Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV. Stream for free on BR Live or download the Dan Patrick Show app.